Hey, everybody, good morning. Welcome to the morning devotion with Bo Willette. Hope you guys are doing good today. It is September 4th, 8 o'clock, and that means it's one day away from my 31st anniversary. Super stoked at that. God, it's hard to believe. Anyway, my name's Bo Willette. I'm going to be going through Jeremiah 39 and 40 today in my devotions. I always air my devotions, and that's what these are, and that's what the morning devotion is, the morning devo with Bo O. My name's Bo Willette. You could always look at the archives, go through those archives of the different books of the Bible that I've gone over. You'd be surprised how much the Bible is very similar to our world. It very much kind of falls in line with the world that we live in. It's interesting that Jeremiah is a book where you have a young guy who is up against a power structure in the political world of the southern tribes of Israel, the nation of Israel, if you will. And that power structures don't like to be talked to, spoken to, especially negatively. And Jeremiah has a word for that king that the king does not want to hear. And it's not just the king; it's the people that the king has, if you will, regulated financially, to put out certain news to the nation. And Jeremiah, his news doesn't fit in line with what the government wants. And boy, he gets thrown into jail. And it's very similar to our world, and I don't know if the world has ever known anything different. We tend to be people that have huge egos. Us human beings are, the species that is the problem, right? We don't do things very well in the sense that we tend to have an emotional life that goes astray. The Bible says that term's iniquity. But, a lot of people don't know that because they don't read the Bible. That's why we go through the Bible. So Jeremiah 39, verse 40. What's up, Christy? Hope you're doing good. Paula, it's good to see you. Tanny, Russell, hey, glad you're with me this morning. So, okay, this is Jeremiah 39 through 40. And if you just take a little time to read through the Bible in a day, you'll get through the whole Bible. And me, just remember, I grew up very secular, atheist, humanistic, very progressive Southern California boy, right? And when I started just reading through the Bible, that's when my mind started changing. I started going, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was in the Bible. I didn't know that's how God worked amongst human beings, amongst the population of the earth. I had no clue. And it's because I was very ignorant. I just never took the time to go through it. So that's why in my devotions, I like to just go through the Bible, just chapter by chapter, verse by verse, we see what's going on. Overall, people don't want God. That's what we get from the Bible, is that even though Yahweh, the God of the Bible, says, hey, what is the evidence for what you guys believe? Even though Yahweh comes off that way through a guy named Isaiah, he says, God is like, hey, throw out your evidence. What is the evidence? So Yahweh is for the evidence of himself, meaning don't believe in God if there's no evidence. But yet the people have turned away to just all sorts of philosophies and ideologies that really aren't cohesive. They don't make sense. And so Yahweh comes off to the people of Israel as, lay out your evidence for this stuff. Why are you even believing this? So the Bible is so different from what you and I think. It's kind of mind-blowing. So Jeremiah, it says in January of the 9th of King Zedekiah's reign, and again, there's specifics in the Bible to help us understand that it's about history. It says King Nebuchadnezzar, this is the king of Babylon, he says, came with the army to besiege Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is a small city. And here you see Nebuchadnezzar coming in to besiege it, to take it. It's the enemy. And it says 2.5 years later, on July 18th, in the 11th year of King Zedekiah's reign, the Babylonians broke through the wall and the city fell. All the officers of the Babylonian army came in and sat in triumph in the middle gate. It talks about these people's names that I'm not going to try to pronounce because they're super crazy. And it says, but they were chief officer and a king advisor. And it talks about the other officials that were part of this besieging of Jerusalem. Just application-wise, there's always things that kind of want to besiege you. And you might go, what? What does that mean? I mean, there's a lot of things that want to, in a sense, come into your city. And meaning they want to infiltrate, and I don't want you to be paranoid or like, what was it? But what I mean by that is there's a lot of influences. We even have people called influencers today. And there's a lot of voices. You got to realize that there's not just, a kid today, back in the day, they probably put on TV and maybe be influenced by something, right? Well, today they got 1,000 people they can listen to in a day, right? They got 1,000 pastors, 1,000 professors, 1,000 psychologists, 1,000 whoever, right? That they want to listen to just at their fingertips. Man, you can be influenced pretty hardcore today. So I see that as kind of a little bit of an application to what's going on here with Babylon coming into Jerusalem. It says, when King Zedekiah and the soldiers saw that the Babylonians had broken into the city and they fled, they waited for nightfall and then slipped through the gate between the two walls behind the king's garden and headed toward the Jordan Valley. But the Babylonian troops chased the king and caught him on the plains of Jericho. The king thought he was going to be fine. He listened to someone other than Jeremiah. And of course, that's how we are. We don't want to listen to God's word. I mean, man, that's tough. I mean, gosh, do I really want to listen to God? The king's like, no way. I'm going to listen to those that I like to hear. So the king is like most of us human beings, that we just want to put people on that make us, that are positive kind of thing. Hey, I need that positive vibe. I need that positive person, someone to speak positivity into me. And man, don't get me wrong. I'm an optimist, man. I tend to be a super positive guy. I just kind of roll that way, right? But the king would not listen to the warnings about the army coming in and besieging Jerusalem. And so now he's on the run. It says, but the Babylonian troops chased the king and caught him in the plains of Jericho. They took him to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who was at Riblah in the land of Hamath. And there the king of Babylon pronounced judgment on Zedekiah. He made Zedekiah watch as they slaughtered his sons and all the nobles of Judah. And they gouged out Zedekiah's eyes, bound him in bronze chains, and led him away to Babylon. Meanwhile, the Babylonians burned Jerusalem, including the palace. They tore down the walls, and then then it says Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, sent to Babylon the rest of the people who remained in the city, as well as those who had defected to him. But Nebuzaradan, or however you pronounce his name, left a few of the poorest people in Judah and assigned them vineyards and fields to care for. So Zedekiah got everything that Jeremiah said that was going to happen. Yahweh spoke through Jeremiah and said something accurate, and that is, if you don't surrender, you're going to die, and it's going to be gnarly. Not just you, but man, those that are a part of you. And the king doesn't listen. We got stubborn hearts as human beings, don't you think? Growing up, if someone said something about the Bible to me, man, I wanted to run. I didn't want to hear that at all. I mean, who wants to listen to the Bible? I'd rather listen to some professor, or I'd rather read a book or something. Maybe read a Dostoevsky novel or something. I don't know. But just something different. Anything that would, get me away from that accountability thing. I mean, let's face it. Like, who wants to be accountable? to God, right? I'd rather just throw off the deity altogether and just say, hey, there is no God, or something like that, or I just don't really know. Or maybe that phrase of like, I'm just a spiritual being. I'm just into spiritualism. I'd use whatever it took to get me away from really having to look at the Bible, like really taking the time to actually go through it. And man, the king is now it's all there. It was all there in black and white. He just didn't take the time to look into it. And a lot of times when we look at our days today, it's all there. It's all in the Bible. I mean, it's all spoken of what's going to happen, and specifically about the nation of Israel, and then in turn the world as well. And that the world will get to a global world. It will be global. People will be able to travel all over the world. It will be a place of a global economic system at some point. This is the direction the Bible speaks. And of course, it's mind-blowing. The Bible talks about events that every eye will see. Every person on earth will be able to see something at the same time. That's interesting. So it's all there. It's just, do we really want to know it? And the answer is no. We'd rather run, right? And that's how us humans really are. It really takes a heart of surrender to be able to go, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Bible is actually the Word of God. And maybe I'm off. And maybe I am accountable to this God. So King Nebuchadnezzar told Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, to find Jeremiah. See that he isn't hurt, he said. Look after him well and give him anything he wants. So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guards, chief officer, an advisor, and other officers of Babylon's king sent messengers to bring Jeremiah out of prison, put him under the care of Gedaliah, son of Ayakim, and a grandson of Zarephan, who took him back to his home. So Jeremiah stayed in Judah among his own people. So Jeremiah is going to witness just the poverty that's in Jerusalem and the difficulties after the sieging, after Babylon comes in and takes control of Jerusalem. So the Lord had given the following message to Jeremiah while he was still in prison. Say to Ebed-Melech the Ethiopian, he was a cool guy, by the way, this Ethiopian guy who was an official in the Israel government. It says, this is what the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of Israel, says. I will do to this city everything I have threatened. I will send disease or disaster, not prosperity. You will see destruction. But I will rescue you and find those who you fear so much. Because you trusted me, I will give you your life. As a reward, I will rescue you and keep you safe. I, the Lord, have spoken. Okay, so that was chapter 39. Super short, right? The besieging of Jerusalem. Some good applications there, though, right? We see stubborn Zedekiah. Man, everything's written down, but he just doesn't want to listen. We see Jeremiah actually being taken out of prison finally, and actually being taken care of as he just trusts the Lord. There's a safety valve, right? He's in a sense, safe from the destruction of Jerusalem. He's put in an area that is safe. And even though that area was jail, his enemies threw him in jail for his, in a sense, harm. They meant harm for him. Notice God used that jail as a place of safety when the besieging of Jerusalem took place. Really interesting. Maybe God puts us in certain places in certain times for certain reasons, right? And that's difficult because, man, sometimes there's a lot of trial, a lot of pain. And certainly Jeremiah was tortured and went through so much. But yet God had a plan. And that's hard to trust God, even in those difficult times where God says, hey, I'm going to take care of you, but it surely doesn't seem like it, right? So the Lord gave a message to Jeremiah after Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, had released him in Ramah. He had found Jeremiah in chains among all the other captives of Jerusalem and Judah who were being sent to exile in Babylon. The captain of the guard called for Jeremiah and said, "The Lord your God has brought this disaster on this land, just as he said he would. For these people have sinned against the Lord and disobeyed him. That is why it has happened. For I am going to take off your chains and let you go. If you want to come with me to Babylon, you are welcome. I will see that you are well cared for. But if you don't want to come, you may stay here. The whole land is before you. Go wherever you like. If you decide to stay, then return to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, and grandson of Zephran. He has been appointed governor of Judah by the king of Babylon. Stay here with the people he rules, but it's up to you. Go wherever you like." Wow, that's cool. The king of Babylon's giving him freedom. And it says, "Then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, gave Jeremiah some food and money and let him go. So Jeremiah returned to Gedaliah, son of Ahikam, at Mizpah, and he lived in Judah with a few who were still left in the land." Okay, cool. So Jeremiah gets this opportunity to be free, and Jeremiah stays in the land. That's a tough decision, right? Sometimes it's always, you always want to take the path of least resistance. And that's how it is in our families, in our relationships. Can I take the path of least resistance? But Jeremiah stays really in the thick of it. So man, it kind of shows his character. It says, "The leaders of the Judean guerrilla bands in the countryside heard that the king of Babylon had appointed Gedaliah as governor over the people who were left behind in Judah, the men, women, and children who hadn't been exiled to Babylon. So they went to see Gedaliah at Mizpah. These included, and it names the names of this kind of guerrilla group, And it says, Gedaliah vowed to them that the Babylonians meant them no harm. Don't be afraid to serve them. Live in the land and serve the king Babylon, and he will go, and all will go well for you, he promised. As for me, I will stay at Mizpah to represent you before the Babylonians who come to meet with us. Settle in the towns you have taken and live off the land. Harvest the grapes and the summer fruits, the olives, and store them away." When the Judeans in Moab, Ammon, and Edom and other nearby countries heard that the king of Babylon had left a few people in Judah and that Gedaliah was the governor, they began to return to Judah from the places to which they had fled. They stopped at Mizpah to meet with Gedaliah and then went into the Judean countryside to gather a great harvest of grapes and other crops. Okay, just a little detail, right? That there is like this little band of people. And they're from different areas. Some of them are Jewish, some of them aren't. But they hear about Gedaliah and him being put as kind of like a puppet king, if you will, a governor in the area of southern Israel. And they go out to meet him. And the report that Gedaliah gives them is the right one. It's, hey, stay in the land, be at peace, harvest, do what you can, put away some food. We got to kind of hunker down and go through the difficult time. Just a real practicality today in my devotion, I think, hey, do I see the writing on the wall? Do I see even in our world that there's difficult times maybe ahead? And then I prepare properly. It's not a bad thing to do that. I've been in some gnarly national disasters. And man, it's tough when something happens and you're not prepared. You just don't have the resources. Things get destroyed. And so sometimes it's good to think through that and just go, man, can I set aside a little bit of money for that national disaster that could hit? Or just prepare, get a little bit of food, get a little bit of this, put it away. I see a little practicality there, little application. It says, soon after this, Jonan, son of Kareah, and the other guerrilla leaders came to Gedaliah at Mizpah. They said to him, "Did you know that the Baalis, king of Ammon, had sent Ishmael, son of Netaniah, to assassinate you?" But Gedaliah refused to believe them. Later, Jonan and a private conference with Gedaliah and volunteered to kill Ishmael secretly. "Why should we let him come and murder you?" Jonan asked, "What will happen when the Judeans who have returned? Why should few of us who are still left be scattered and lost?" So he's saying, hey, why should we let this guy who's supposedly going to assassinate you? But Gedaliah said to Jonan, "I forbid you to do any such thing, for you are lying about Ishmael." Ooh, so we're going to see what happens here and how this goes on. So we're going to kind of get into the history of the turmoil that's going to be happening, and that Jeremiah is recording of what's happening after Babylon besieges Jerusalem and leaves it. Now, I mean, it's a lot of history, and it just reminds me that this morning that, you know what, the Bible is not some once upon a time in a galaxy far, far and away book. You know, I used to think that way, of course, and when you grow up super secular, you know, that's how you think. The Bible is some fairy tale. But obviously, this is not dealing with fairy tale. This is dealing with history. And it means there's some validity to it. There's some weight to it, some value to it. Something that we should look at and go, hey, this isn't just some fairy tale. This is actually recording real events, real history. It's reporting historical events. So when someone says on TV or someone says on the internet or on their YouTube channel or on their Instagram little reel, you know, like the Bible is falsed out or something like that, you know, it's just, those are statements that just are there. And I used to make those kind of statements all the time growing up. You know, I just used to ridicule the Bible all the time, but it was to get a reaction from you. You know, I like to see Christians kind of get all ruffled, you know, oh my God, blah, 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 you know, that kind of thing. You know, in a sense, it was kind of fun to do that. You know, and I never really knew the Bible. I didn't know there was chapters like this and whole books like this that were just historical books about what happened during war times in Israel. And so it should help you to have some confidence in the Bible and some, you know, some real, let it hold some value in your heart. Just like you would read another book on the history of World War I or World War II or things like that. And it would have some heft with you. So this is reporting the besieging of the Babylonian Empire into the city or the capital of the southern tribes of Israel, which is Jerusalem. Jerusalem, that is a place. You can look at it on a map, right? But there are some good applications to us as well. And that is sometimes, I think, at the end of this chapter, there's who do you trust? You know, who can you really trust in difficult times? It seems like people want to be close to you, want to be a friend, but do they really? You know, who can you really trust? And that's what this governor is having to assess. Can I really trust them? I mean, they're saying someone wants to assassinate me, but really? Do they want to? You know, it's very difficult, you know, in our life to find people that we can, you know, just confide in and know that it's not going to go outside of that group. You're not going to talk to that person and then that person's going to tell someone else and tell someone else and tell someone else until it comes back to you. And that's very, you know, a challenging thing with us humans is that we're not very good friends. You know, and that's tough to deal with. And so I just end on this note. You know, how good of a friend are you? Are you able to keep confidence? And if not, why? You know, what is it about me that has a problem with keeping confidence? Or that doesn't do a good job at keeping confidence? What is going on in the heart that prevents me from being a good friend, being someone that they could trust? So I kind of end there. Very interesting couple of chapters. But I hope now you see that, hey, the Bible has a lot of cool things in it and very similar things to our day, right? Even politically, power structures and the difficulties of dealing with power structures, just as the little people. So anyway, you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.